Here we are, folks, and if ever there was a time where the pressure was on for a movie to be good, this is that time. Man of Steel. This is gonna be a spoiler-free video here, so you have nothing to worry about. Will I do a spoiler-filled video? You bet. I'll put that video up in a few days, probably this weekend, but for now, enjoy the spoiler-free review. So we all know what Man of Steel is by now. It's Superman, dude. It's directed by Zack Snyder. Zack Snyder gave us 300, Watchmen, Dawn of the Dead, that movie. And it's produced by Christopher Nolan, so things are looking good for Man of Steel. And it's an origin story, so we get to see Krypton again. I liked how Krypton was in this movie. You get a sense of Krypton is more than just a big white ice planet. It has a system, it has a culture. It was cool to see, and they spend a bit of time on Krypton. More time than you expect, which is why when little Kal-El's ship gets to Earth, it immediately cuts to him being an adult. You see his childhood upbringing in the form of flashbacks. I always like that. That's a time-efficient and very interesting way to tell a story. If you do it right, that is. You jump to him being an adult, you get the cliff notes of him being a kid, and you see the relevant events of things that matter. Cool. Superman in this movie is played by Henry Cavill. I've always called him Henry Cavill because it just sounded cooler. I guess it's Cavill. In either case, doesn't matter. He kills it as Kal-El. He's really good in the role. The dude looks the part. He's likable. He's relatable as a person. You can still tell he has like moral fiber. He's like, no, I gotta do good because I'm a good guy. But he's not unrelatable. You know, he's a good guy like a good guy on Earth could be a good guy. The dude is human. He grew up on Earth. You know, minus his genetic code. Guy's pretty human. He's human, but he's really good and he's assertive. He's not a pushover. He's what I wanted Superman to be in this movie. Other than Henry Cavill, everyone else did a really good job in the movie too. Amy Adams was good as Lois Lane. Kevin Costner was good as Jonathan Kent. I was afraid it was gonna feel like Costner was shoehorned in this movie, but it didn't. He felt like Jonathan Kent. He felt like a good Jonathan Kent. Michael Shannon as Zod is the one that I'm like, he was cool in the movie, but I can't say Michael Shannon owned the role. You know, you wanna walk out of a movie like this and be like, oh, that actor was the only actor who could have played that role. I don't feel like that with Michael Shannon in general Zod, and it kind of bums me out. That being said, he was awesome. He was intense. He killed it in the sorority letter, and he did a good job in this movie. One of the fears I've heard about in this movie is people are afraid that they're trying to turn the Superman franchise into the Dark Knight franchise, because Nolan's producing this and he directed the Dark Knight movies, so automatically, I get it, it's a fear, it's out there. But in this movie, no, clearly Zack Snyder directed this movie. Whether or not you like Zack Snyder will determine whether or not you feel like that's a good thing. But at no point in this movie was I like, Christopher Nolan directed this movie, because it didn't feel like that. Zack Snyder's a very visual type person, you know. However, in Zack Snyder being a visual director, sometimes when the throwdowns happen between Zod and Superman, or Kal-El as they call him in this movie, which is also awesome, at first you're like, okay, that's really cool, awesome, I like it. Then you're like, okay, they're all flying through buildings and it's still intense and cool. Then at a point you're like, okay, you can kind of back it up. You don't have to make everything so exaggerated and crazy. In terms of some of the action sequences in this movie, I feel like less could have been more. I mean, I like cool action sequences. I like Superman. I want to see Superman and General Zod fly through buildings because that would probably be cool. But I also like fireworks. I like the 4th of July, but every time I watch a fireworks show that's like a half an hour long, by about minute 10, I'm like, okay, I get it. I'm not going to see anything new here. I feel like kind of the same thing happened in the action sequences in Man of Steel. You don't have to have a crazy action sequence and then follow it up with another crazy action sequence and then follow it up with another crazy action sequence. At a point, you start diluting the currency and it starts becoming less special. There's a part of me that thinks Zack Snyder watched a bunch of Mighty Morphin Power Rangers episodes and they get in their Zords and they're knocking each other around and the monsters are falling on buildings that are getting annihilated. Then Zack Snyder was like, well, I can wreck more buildings than that. Watch, I'm gonna do Superman. The setup in this movie has a lot of information to cover in that you feel like the first hour of this movie is a bit choppy in the sense that they're like, all right, this, and this, and this. All right, now cape, and now he's flying. However, when he flies, it was awesome. Because he doesn't just fly like, yeah, I'm Kal-El, I fly because that's what I do. The dude grew up on a farm in Kansas. So what would the expression on your face be if one day you got the power of flight? Yeah, just like this movie where he's like, oh my god, this is awesome, I'm flying. It was cool to see. I like the fact that he acts human. So this is a cool start for a Superman franchise. I walked out of this movie going, all right, I want to see a sequel. Hell, I want to see a Justice League movie. I want to see where they take this universe. For reasons I'll talk more about in my spoiler video. But for now, I liked it. I loved Henry Cavill. The first half of the movie felt a little choppy at times. And as cool as the action was in this movie, at a point you're like, less would have been more. That's undeniable for me. However, cool shit does happen. You can't deny that. I will say I will buy Man of Steel on Blu-ray. I suppose if I can tell you to keep something in mind when going in to see Man of Steel, it's that the tone that they've set up for the past year via the trailers isn't really the tone of the movie. You know, the trailers have had these really tragic songs, like the first one had the song when Gandalf fell into the shadow in Fellowship of the Ring, and you're like, dude, this movie's gonna emotionally wipe me out. Not really. You do have emotional moments in the movie, but all in all, the fourth trailer, the trailer I didn't and actually do a video on. You know, the action-packed type trailer where you're like, all right, that looks like awesome summer moviness, which isn't a word, but it is now. That action-packed trailer is more or less the more accurate depiction of Man of Steel. So Superman movies, what's your favorite? What's your least favorite? Whatever they are, comment below, let me know. And as always, if you like what you've seen here and you want to see more, click right here to see more.